I call this September 8th meeting of the York County Planning Commission to order. Excuse me. Looking over the agenda, are there any changes or adjustments? Is there a motion?
I'll approve.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor? Looking over last month's minutes, any questions or corrections?
Nope.
I'll make a,
There's on page 5 of 58, I think I think you meant to put Tim instead of time. Helene on point 6. Can't believe I saw that.
Oh,
yes, I think it was a copy.
We have a
because the
proofreader
agenda was
in the group.
actually wrong last.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm assuming
So
it's
just
Tim.
a typo on number 6 at the end. His name is Tim, not Time. So the first line on
Page 5.
page
Page
5,
five.
number 6, just that last 2 words should be Tim instead of Time.
There's Mike.
Thank you.
I move that we approve the minutes.
I'll second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. Moving on to new business. We have a rezoning. This is rezoning 25-37. Mark Lindsay, applicant owner, requesting to rezone a .61 acre parcel from UD to RSF 30. The subject parcel is located on Porter Road in Rock Hill, and the property is referenced as tax map number 672000063, Council District 4.
Good evening, everyone. Thomas Newland, Long Range Planner. So this property is south of the city of Rock Hill, off Porter Road, kind of along the interstate corridor, about 26,000 square feet. And the applicant is proposing to consolidate this property with the neighboring lot. This lot actually went through very similar rezoning. It was case 2341, December 2023. The lot itself, the subject lot, is in red here. You can see it's vacant, and the one in blue currently has a residence home business on it, and the backside is mostly vacant as well. This area is a lot of urban development. Some of these properties have also zoned out of UD and switched into residential single-family 30. Again, because of the kind of broad nature of the uses allowed in UD, here's a map with some context to the actual land use. R is for residential, C is for commercial. You can see this is predominated by residential uses. Future land use map has this municipal infill, given how close it is to Rock Hill. And Rock Hill's future land use has this as interstate employment. This designation, they're looking for manufacturing, warehousing, freight operations that benefit from proximity to I-77, very similar to our I-77 corridor employment designation. And so staff is going to recommend approval of this request with the condition that an approved subdivision plat combining the subject parcel with the adjacent lot is recorded within 90 days of approval, just given this will create a lot that is below the minimum required lot size of RSF 30. And so while it's actually not consistent with Rock Hill's future land use map, and technically does not align with our comp plan, we do find that the other properties along Porter Road are mostly residential in use and character, or are zoned RSF 30, and it will remove another legacy UD district from the map. Any questions for staff?
If there are no questions, is there a motion
I make a motion to approve
with the condition?
with the condition. Thank you. Because that was one of my questions, and then I saw the condition. Sorry about that. Okay.
So we have a first, is there a second?
I'll second, or if you want, go.
We're going to fight over who's seconding?
Yeah, no.
Nope. Okay. Is there any discussion?
Just quick question, so this is just a rezone, this is not a recombination yet?
That's right. It's rezoning to allow the
The
recombination.
Allow
recombination
for
to come.
it, right.
Okay,
Yeah.
because when I was looking at the this says there are no structures on the lot, it means because of the, we're looking at the red piece.
That's
The blue
exactly
piece
right.
does have, and, okay,
That's right,
all right, that, sorry, that probably should have been in the questions
It's okay.
instead of the comments, but
It's all good. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I had one clarification. The lot that's adjoining, is that under common ownership? It's not clear whether the same owner owns both lots.
Oh, yes, the same owner owns both
Okay.
lots. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a first and a second. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. Now we're going to move on to hearing information and reviewing the recommendation on an ordinance adoption for the public education facilities impact fee to be imposed on all new residential development in the Clover School District Number 2 pursuant to York County Ordinance Number 2718, the impact fee procedures. If you could just state your name and address, please.
Certainly. Hello, my name is Sheila Quinn, Superintendent for Clover School District. I live at 931 Thornridge Lane in Clover.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, members of the Planning Commission, for this opportunity to come back before you again tonight. My role tonight is just to give you an agenda overview of what we're prepared to do. I'm going to talk a little bit about the background of what brought us here, the legislative requirements that we felt that we had to follow in order to be in front of you today, our process for the impact fee review that we have followed, our specific request of you, and then those members who will be joining me to maybe answer any questions that you had. I know you submitted a great deal of questions, and we've provided those to you, but we thought we would bring those members back for you tonight in case you had follow-up questions. So in terms of background first, Clover School District is 5 years into the 10-year comprehensive capital improvement plan that we started back in 2018-19 and implemented beginning in 2020. Clover School District conducted its initial impact fee study with Tischler Bice in 2020, and we were awarded an impact fee in January of 2021. And despite the maximum allowable amounts that were supported in that study of $15,014 for single family, $7,419 for multifamily, and $9,828 for mobile homes, Clover School District was awarded an impact fee, but at the rate of $4,000 for single family, $1,976 for multifamily, and $2,618 for mobile homes. And that is what we've been collecting the last 5 years, appreciatively, but that is the amount. Legislatively, the Comprehensive Plan Act Code 629-510 requires that we do an updated capital improvement plan at least every 10 years. And as I said, we're 5 years into a 10-year study. The Comprehensive Plan Act also requires the Planning Commission to review the plan at least every 5 years to determine if changes in the amount, the kind, or direction make it a desirable, or additions or amendments to the plan. And then finally, the Impact Fee Act, South Carolina Code 61950, requires that the Planning Commission review the impact fees on the same schedule as the comprehensive plan, which brings us here for our 5-year review. So in terms of our process, in March of this year, I consulted with Sarah Spruill. She's one of South Carolina's leading impact fee attorneys, and she also supported the Fort Mill School District in their process. And I asked her to give us information about what our district would need to do at this 5-year review so that we could meet the needs of the Planning Commission. I sent our initial letter to the county asking for the resolution to be reviewed, to review our fee, and consulted with Jonathan Buono, which is Director of Planning, to confirm the appropriate studies that you would all need in order for our consideration for our plan to move forward. We agreed that we would provide the following. I think we've tried to do that very thoroughly. We would update and verify growth projections for our district. We would update and verify the capacity in our schools relative to student enrollment over the last 5 years. We would update and verify the future plan developments for our district. We would update the cost in the capital improvement plan associated with the projects identified as needed for growth. And in our plan, it was an elementary school, a high school, land, and buses. There was some confusion about a middle school, which we are opening another middle school, but we paid for that out of district saved funds, so that was not in the impact fee study. We also felt that we had to ensure in this study that the maximum allowable fees that were presented back in 2020 were still viable, supportable, and accurate in this new 2025 study, which we believe also that we have done. So what is our request? We have conducted all relevant and required studies and answered detailed questions about growth, enrollments, and costs associated with the identified projects to address growth. As we are still in the same capital improvement plan as we were in 2020, we are requesting that the maximum allowable impact fee that was supported in the 2020 study as the fee going forward for our request through 2026. We understand that the 2025 impact fee study showed that a higher maximum amount in all three cases could be supported. But we believe this is due primarily to the increased construction costs that we saw in building these buildings from the estimates that we originally had in 2020 to the real cost that we saw through 2025. Again, we simply ask you to consider that the maximum 2020 fee be allowed moving forward for us to present to the county council. Tonight, I have 4 people with me who will help answer some questions if you have any follow-up questions. I have Mr. Carson Bice, who conducted our impact fee study. He can answer questions on anything related to the impact fee, including any changes from the 2020 to the 2025 study. I have Dr. Mark Hopkins. He can answer questions on enrollments, growth, capacity, and plan developments in our district. I have Mr. Ken Love, who can answer questions about financing for Lake Wiley High School and Liberty Hill Elementary School, and about any money we've drawn down from impact fees from the county and how those were spent so far, and what will be done with any remaining funds that we have. And then finally, I have Mr. John Hadaway. He is from Leitner Management Group, and he can talk about the budget estimates that we had in 2020 versus the actual cost that we have seen in construction over the last 5 years, not 25 years. So thank you for this opportunity once again, and I will turn it over to the questions that you have, and we will have members of our team step up and answer those if you have any. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would some, like,
I've got one initial one. Did you say these fees, the max fee for 2020 report that you're coming to us, you're saying those are good through 2026? So
They're-
does that mean you're going to come back in another year?
No,
or-
I don't think, sunset's not the right word, but in 2021 would be our 5-year mark, and according to the impact fee law, we have to present information that shows that anything we would ask going forward supports that those fees either stay the same, go down, or move up. And so we are asking for that same maximum allowable to be extended through 2026, even though a higher amount could be approved.
Okay. And I've got one more, and then I'll let everybody else. I think I brought up last time about the mobile homes, and that I think those fees in relation to single-family, multifamily are higher than what I would think. And I noticed that from 2019 to 2025, the number of students is decreasing. So I can't remember.
Number
the
of students in
calculate-
mobile homes,
Yeah, it says mobile
Specifically?
homes, it says number of students generated by housing type
yes, gotcha.
versus 2025. So in 2019, so we were projecting 785 would be generated, but now we're talking about 471. So in the calculation, so we're decreasing here, but yet we're still increasing the price for impact on mobile homes.
I'm going to ask Mr. Bice to come forward, and as he is coming forward, I'm going to begin to answer that question, and then I'll let him fill in what I don't. In 2019, those were actual students in mobile homes, so it wasn't a projection. And so what we did is you have to go through and you have to geocode where every child lives to determine what is your generation out of certain types of homes. So that's the first thing, is that it's not projections, it's real people. And we did see a decrease from the 2020 report to now in mobile homes. So that's true, but we still do have children who come to us that live in mobile homes. The impact fee is on any new mobile home. And what I heard Carson say to you the last time was, when a certain type of home behaves differently than another type of home, then you can break it out separately. So what typically mobile homes, and Carson will correct me if I'm wrong, they're counted in the single family. So it could be if you put a new mobile home in, that you're charged at the single family rate. We did not want that in Clover
Correct.
School District. We wanted it broken out separately because we believed it would generate fewer students, which it does, and therefore qualify for a lower impact fee. And so that's why it's not up where the single family home is. It's at its own rate, at a lower rate than that. Did I answer that correctly, Mr. Weiss? Says yes.
Yeah, it's just when I look at the economies of scale, you know,
Correct. Yeah.
the mobile home is gonna be a lot less than a single family, you know, especially there in Clover. And the impact, percentage-wise, is most on mobile homes. And, you know, we have to supply, you know, affordable housing is something that we all look at countywide. So I just feel that it's
a high fee.
It's still high.
Yeah.
Yeah, for that, but
Right.
that's just my thoughts.
I totally understand that completely.
Would you allow me to clarify something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Unless Mr. Weiss wants to come up. The maximum fee in the 2020 report for mobile homes is $9,828. For single, multifamily, it's $7,419. So the mobile home is actually $1,200 more, $2,200 more than the multifamily apartment, which is the opposite of what I think your intention was
Well,
by
not-
splitting them out.
No, I
Not
don't
necessarily,
think
it just in our district, it produced per unit more children, per
Okay.
unit. Not that it produced more children, because we have more apartments than we do mobile homes, but per unit, it produces more. Less than single family, but more than
But more than apartments.
multifamily, yes, more than an
Okay,
apartment,
Or multifamily.
sorry.
Okay.
And my basis is, you know, let's be real, multifamily, new multifamily, the rent leases are a lot more per month than mobile homes.
Correct.
So you've got people that are having to, again, pay more of an impact fee. Possibly, it gets transferred to them.
But it's produced by a mathematical calculation. It's not a number that was chosen to penalize any, or it's produced by the number of children that a unit produces. And so because it produces a slightly higher number of children than an apartment does, that's why it's a little more than an apartment and less than a single family.
I just thought I'd bring it up.
Yes, no, it's a reasonable concern. I understand that.
Other additional questions?
Yeah, I had, if I might, first I wanted to thank the group for taking the time to answer all the questions that we had. Just so you don't feel like we're picking on you, we had a similar type of questioning for the Fort Mill School District, and we do appreciate your
You're welcome.
spending the time to get us those answers. That said, I've just got a couple of questions. The first one being, understand that we're talking about a 10-year capital improvement plan. But you've got two schools that are going to be completed in 12 months. And yet the plan continues for another 5 years. And I believe it calls for having to justify the capital improvement plan with projects that are supported or asked to be supported by the impact fee. So my question to you is, are there additional projects that are being proposed that have not been presented or that may be interpreted as being part of an existing school that would qualify in the next 5 years for an impact fee?
We need to finish our high school. Our
Okay.
high school still will, not just what's to open it, but the surrounding athletic facilities that go with it, including the stadium.
Okay,
We certainly need to finish that. We have buses that we need to purchase now that we're adding 3 new schools and we're adding a high school. You have to double your activity fleet for students who are doing field trips, students who are going on sports, and then we're adding a 3rd middle school. So we'll be purchasing those and adding to those over the next 5 years. those are the two that will extend a little bit longer than the current projects.
Okay. I did happen to watch your board meeting where you discussed the color of buses and what used buses cost, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Yes,
I just needed a clarification
certainly.
on whether, in that specific case, you had requested 21 buses in the original study, 20 buses, and now you want 21. But you did clarify that there were, I think, 13 remaining out of that original group that have not been purchased?
That is correct. I believe 13 is the right number, but we also have to take some of our old ones offline because
Okay.
they are at end of life.
And these are just activity buses?
These are
They're
just
not-
activity buses,
Yeah.
right. If you, if you watch the report, if you buy the yellow buses with all the other safety things, you can also use them on routes during the day. But largely, we're going to need a fleet that has the storage underneath for kids when they're taking field trips and
For the
sports
band and
equipment that we
such.
can store there. We're gonna need the bigger buses. Yes, sir. And I didn't mention also, we are also always in the, I shouldn't say this on TV, always looking for land. Land is the other piece that's in the study that may go past this next year.
Okay.
Now, the cost just went up now that I've said that, so
What's the minimum amount that could, that considers it a CIP project? Is it?
the
do you know
minimum
offhand
amount.
How many
that-
million that is?
I really don't know that there's a minimum amount. I mean, look, there's a lot in our projects that are deferred maintenance, so roofs and HVACs. We've got a book of things. We didn't put these in the impact fee study because that's renovations.
Correct.
But that's in our capital improvement plan. Those are also things that we have to pay for and do. But in terms of new things that address growth, facilities that address growth, it's just what we've said, the land, the buses, the elementary school, the high school. In retrospect, we probably should have put the middle school in because there are costs to renovate it to be a middle school, but we did not. We decided to pay for those with capital funds that we had saved.
Dave, kind of a follow-up to that.
Yes, sir.
And I think where this is coming from, a lot of us that are used to working in industry, there's a threshold. So financially, once you want to spend above a certain dollar amount, it's no longer considered an expense, it's considered capital. And you have to go through all the approval processes in the business to justify the capital expenditure. So you're saying you all don't have a threshold like that?
We don't,
But
because there's no funding
what do you use
mechanism.
as a method to determine whether we're going to use capital money or whether we're going to use expense money?
So all projects that have to do with our building come out of what we call our capital spending. And I'm going to let Mr. Love come forward and explain that more because he is in the weeds, if you'll step up here with me. But there's no funding mechanism in the state of South Carolina to build a building, to add on to a building, to buy a
Understood.
bus, all of that.
Understood.
So all of that is over into our capital
Yeah, I'm
experience.
not necessarily
expenses.
saying how the funds are acquired. I'm asking more a question of
There's not a minimum
what the
threshold.
decision process is to say, well, we need 10 more AC units. Okay, is that considered an expense or is that considered capital? And how do you all make that determination is what I'm asking.
And that's the reason why I asked the question. Thank you, Mike.
Understood. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. We use the process for accounting as capital items in the accounting system as anything that has a $5,000 value or more. For long-term assets, buildings, renovations of air conditioning systems, heating systems, those kinds of items that would last more than 5 years are considered capital assets. Anything else is in the repair maintenance process.
So if I've heard you correctly and want to repeat that back, anything that would have a life of greater than 5 years or anything that is going to be over 5,000 in an expenditure would
That's right.
qualify? Okay. Does that help? Okay.
Do you have an estimate as to what you anticipate the revenue will be from the proposed impact fee change over the next 5 years to work with? Now, I know the last 5 were probably less than you would have imagined. I think the largest, it ended up being, I think it was $5.4 million that had been collected, plus interest. That's really not going to cover a whole lot of expenses.
No,
But-
impact fees aren't designed to be an all-inclusive. They support and add up to other capital funds. Had we gotten the maximum allowable, we would have about 20 million, and that would have been pretty substantial in what we have seen these escalating costs have caused us to have to do to make sure our financing was secure. So that would have been really helpful.
Okay.
No, but we have not done the calculations of if we get that maximum allowable, what we would collect. We can do that math because we can see what is approved and what's
What's approved.
remaining, but I have not
Yeah,
calculated.
incidentally, that list of new developments has a couple of caveats that some of those
Unfortunately, sir.
also include waivers.
That is
And
correct.
they're not listed that way, so you just may want to take that into consideration. And I think it's actually a greater percentage going forward than it was taking a 5-year look back.
I'm not sure what you're asking there, but
No, I'm just
yeah.
stating a fact.
Yeah,
that-
right.
That it's, I think it was about 12% of what was collected was, well, 58% was single-family, 28% was multifamily, was less than 1% of manufactured homes, and 12% of the total units had waivers on them. I think that's going up
that is
considerably.
true. We do have one very large development that will
Mhm.
be exempt, and we do have an age-restricted development that will be exempt. Correct, but hopefully other things that are approved will not fall under that category, if they are approved to be built.
So just to summarize, for the CIP projects, you're looking at land, right? You're always looking at land. You're talking about the football stadium for the high school, which I see now has been estimated at $15 to $20 million
Yeah,
for
well,
that.
that's what now conservatively we're looking at, and now John Hadaway can speak to that more specifically if you have follow-up questions.
Okay,
We would have loved to have passed bond one and gotten the costs that were back then. Things have definitely escalated.
yeah, but I recall specifically taking that out of the bond to try and make that more reasonable the second time around.
Well, we just asked for a high school. We were hoping to be able to get bids in that would include it.
Okay.
But we are very willing to share until we can afford it.
You have another one you can use in the interim? You have another stadium you can use in the
That's
interim?
right, we're sharing with Clover High for a
That's
while.
nice.
I think it's in section 2G. It says that the fee study, it's on page 23 of our packet, but it's point G or section 2 point G. Says the fee study and CIP includes a report which estimates the effect of recovering capital costs through impact fees on availability of affordable housing within the district. How often is that report presented, and to who is it presented to?
Vice, take that
So
question, please.
What he's referring to is part of the ordinance that's been put before us
Yeah,
this evening.
correct.
Yeah, so that's
Thank you.
section 2G of the ordinance language. And I don't know if you have a copy of that
I
to see what we're
don't.
looking at. Okay.
Oh,
I'm not, I think I understood the question. It was, how often is the effect of the fees
study.
calculated on the?
Correct.
As far as I know, and I'm going to have to plead ignorance because I haven't seen the ordinance, I didn't write the ordinance. But it's typically with every impact fee report. I don't think the county updates that affordable housing analysis on an annual basis.
Okay. Yeah, it just didn't, it was kind of gray there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
While you're here, maybe one that would be a little bit more up your alley.
Okay.
Okay. Page 7 of your study.
Okay.
And we have different numbers of students by housing type. And then we have housing unit type, so we have a total of almost 45,000 students, if I'm looking at that right. And is that, and 96,000 homes? Or trying to make a little distinction there, because there's two charts, or two tables.
So That is for the PUMA, or the Public Use Micro Sample Area, which is larger than the district,
Okay,
okay? So because the district is at its own PUMA, you basically have to take the PUMAs that it's in, figure out the raw student generation rate, multiply that by the number of, basically, it'll come up with a number that is slightly higher than what enrollment is today in Clover School District. And that's
Okay.
because you've got kids that are either being homeschooled, going to private school, or maybe going to boarding schools somewhere else.
Okay.
So then
Okay.
we have to calibrate it to the actual enrollment from 2023, which is the year that public use microsample data was collected by the U.S. Bureau.
so what are the two, what's the 44,000 I see as students across all those different?
For an
Group.
area much larger than the
Okay,
Clover School
and then
District.
what's the 96,000 number?
That is the number of housing units within those two PUMA areas.
The actual
501.
homes,
Right, the
housing
actual
units
homes that
across
existed
the three types?
in 2023, right.
Okay, all right. So I was looking through here trying to, I know you guys do this, but where is the kind of, here's how many houses we see within the district now. Here's what we see that number to become 5 years from now.
Okay.
Is there a table in here that shows those estimates?
Not in the impact fee report. We have a projection of student enrollment based on historical growth rates.
Okay, so the projections are always based on number of students,
Typically.
not necessarily number of homes.
The only time we typically produce that projection based on housing units is when, frankly, a unsophisticated district doesn't have a cohort survival model that ages kids through the system and then adds a component for new growth. They'll do a housing forecast, and those projections typically are higher than what will actually happen, which is
Yeah,
why we
I'm
don't.
always surprised every time we do this at how kids wind up in,
Right.
so many in elementary
Because you have
school,
tremendous
and then they can't
recycling
make
in
it to
some
high school,
districts
and we don't
and-
know what happened to them,
Right.
but the numbers are, there's some logic to why that number goes down, that you have a lower number in high school than you do in elementary school. To take that a little further then, when we're talking about, as some of the other folks have mentioned, how you determine a fee for a single family versus a multifamily versus mobile home, if we're just talking about students and we're not really looking at the number of homes that changed, how do you get to a reasonable, well, this is how we see the mobile home market going, so this is what we think the fee should be, based on what portion of that overall would be attributed to them?
Well, good question. We don't speculate on changes in demographics or changes in behavior in the report. We look at actual what's in the ground today, so to speak, which is why we looked at, the previous study, Dale Holden had done his own geocoded analysis for the pupil generation rates. We didn't have that data available to us this time, so the fallback is to use public use microsample data. And so we look at what was actually occurring in the PUMA area in 2023, and we don't forecast or extrapolate or try to guess on what's going to happen with demography over the 10-year period. That's one of the reasons why impact fees have to be updated every 4 or 5 years to keep up with these types of trends.
Well, yeah, okay, and I might be a little bit slow carrying the one here, so bear with me as I'm trying to do the math. What it looks like you have is we need to come up with this bucket of, we've calculated we need this bucket of money to do what we need to do. No?
No.
Okay.
We have not backed into an impact fee based on what needs to be spent. We calculate, well, how many school-age children by type of school, or type of school type, elementary, middle versus high school, are generated by single-family versus multifamily versus mobile homes. And we look at, well, what does it cost to provide a student seat? Then that's how we come up with the fee. We don't say, we have a $100 million CIP, we think enrollment's going to increase by 7,000, and then divide the 100 million by 7,000 students. That's not how the fee is determined.
Okay.
Which is why fee revenue will never equal what the CIP is.
Okay, so your you're gonna have to run that by me one more time.
Okay.
Because I'm trying to figure out, I'm thinking if I've got if I've got a car loan and I got to figure out how much I'm paying every month, I have to do some math with what the interest rate is, and I figure that out. You're telling me that you're projecting off into the future an amount
Nope.
that's going to be needed for the
I
student?
know I'm saying we're not doing.
Okay,
Right, what we do, if you turn to figure 15 on page 19 of our report,
okay,
is we look at, for instance, with a single-family house, generates .245 school-age children. We know that the level of service at the elementary school is 138 square feet, or approximately 139 square feet per student. We know that it costs $450 per square foot, so we get a construction cost per student of $62,518. We also do the same sort of calculus for the land component, the bus component, then we apply the credits to get a cost per student. That's very different than saying, we need $100 million, let's divide that by the projection of new students over the 10
right,
years.
when I say projection, I guess I should say calculation. You are calculating cost per student.
Right.
Okay. And the capital cost is based on an estimate of the cost of what it would be to build something at that rate per square foot.
Right, it's based on the cost from the CIP.
Okay. And so how does that translate into having different numbers for whether you have a single family, a multifamily, or a?
Because if you look at the top of figure 18, you'll see that single-family units generate more students than a multifamily unit at the elementary level, and mobile homes also generate more students at the elementary school level than a multifamily. And the same,
So, okay, or across the board total, that's
Right.
your .5, your
Right.
.276, and .408.
Right.
Right, and
Right.
so that is where the sensitivity analysis ratio number comes from that drives
Right.
what you recommend for each of those
Right.
different ones. Okay.
right.
Has there, okay. I heard John mention a little bit about extracurricular stuff and stadiums and buses. Has that ever been sectioned out of a capital plan? In other words, to say, for an impact fee to perform education activities, here's how we're gonna estimate it out at the cost and whatever, and this is what we need. And then over here, we need $25–30 million to do a stadium and do buses for extracurricular sports, whatever the case may be.
Well, first of all, the stadium's not part of the impact fee. Just the
Okay.
buses. And it's only the buses that the district buys.
The,
State buys the yellow.
all right,
buses.
so the stadium's not part of the impact fee, but the activity buses would be, because the activity buses would be used not only for athletic events, but also for field trips,
Right.
things that might happen at the
Exactly.
school. Okay.
Exactly.
I'm
Is that-
confused again.
I wondered if you might be, because I've heard some different, I'm hearing a different answer from you about how that's in the impact fee versus that. So maybe if we have someone that can clarify that distinction for us.
Like square foot cost.
Correct, yes. The square foot of
We'll need you to come to the microphone so everybody can capture what you're talking
Forgive me,
about.
forgive me.
Sorry.
The square foot cost that Carson calculated did not include the stadium. It was for the buildings themselves. The stadium was an alternate we pulled out early in the process to try to get that number down, knowing that it would be a challenge to get that. At the time, initially, we thought 10 million, but it's gone up since then. But he's not included that in any of the calculations for the impact fee.
Okay, and so it's more of an overall budgetary question of, based on the calculations for the impact fee, and CapEx money that you may already have, you might be able to make a decision to say, we'd recommend a lower impact fee if we weren't going to build a stadium. No, not like that at all. Okay?
The impact fee is an independent calculation based on the data that Carson uses.
Understood, but
Yeah.
then where does the money come from for your stadium and for that? Do you follow what I'm saying? Again, this is me trying to get my brain wrapped around how things work a little different in government than they do in business. Capital's capital in business, right?
So, Mr. Segura's question to me is, do we have projects beyond the next year? So I answered that question. We do have a stadium. So, but if the stadium is not in the impact fee, we would not be able to use impact fee funds to pay for a stadium.
Right.
But there are other projects that the impact fee could be applied to. The buses, the land, the final cost of these buildings, all of that could be applied to using the impact fee. So that's what's in the study. Anytime we have to build something as expensive as a stadium, we only have 3 ways to do it. Impact fee, this one won't apply in this one. We have to raise a bond, pass a bond, or we have to move money from our operating budget that we may have at the end of the year that's unspent over to a capital fund that we can then apply. So those are the only 3 ways that we, and I think some districts have a sales tax towards school projects. We don't in York County. We're not eligible to have that here.
Okay.
So those are the only ways we can do that.
So where I was going was kind of the third one that you mentioned there, in that if we have some money left over and we could be doing this and we put that towards the stadium,
Yeah.
how does that affect what we come up with an impact fee? And
The
you're
impact
telling
fee
me
is
it
what
doesn't
it
have
is.
anything to do with it
It is
because
what
the
it is
impact
based
fee
on
is
the
just
current projects, yeah.
based on looking at kids that are going to be in
Right.
houses and who we have to provide education for
Right.
and calculating rather than projecting, right? Calculating to get to, this is how much the fee would be by housing type.
Right.
Okay. Thank
I
you.
did forget one other way. We can leverage our 8% borrowing. We can borrow up to the 8% of the assessed value. We can do that without a
Sure,
bond. So that's
sure.
the other way we can raise money.
Okay.
Sorry, forgot that one.
Thank you.
Which you clarified is how the elementary school was.
Yes, sir. That's exactly right.
Financed, yeah. There was, in the last discussion, a question about the affordable housing analysis. And if I might just bring it up again, if you go back to the 2012 and the 2020 studies, there were 4 or 5 pages devoted to what was referred to at the time as a cost burden analysis. That seems to have morphed into an affordable housing analysis. And by the way, I tried to do you a favor and recalculate everything using a 5% down payment, and that monthly actually goes down if you do that.
It doesn't have 5%. I was wrong. Misspoke the first meeting. It assumes 100% finance.
It did, yeah. I say if we assume 5% down, it obviously brings that down. But it also shows that at 6%, regardless, a 6% interest rate, regardless of what the fee is, whether it was the full 21 or the 15, somewhere between 5.5% and 6%, the overall cost of the fee doubles in 30 years. If you go up higher, obviously that increases even more. But that brings me back to, and I think you tried to explain it, I still have an issue with coming up with just a number that tells me how much more I'm going to pay a month. To me, that doesn't tell me if I can afford it or not. And you guys, even though I think you claimed that they were incongruous data sources, if I might be allowed to use that term, you were still able to calculate whether or not an impact fee on top of existing expenses, just like a bank would look at when evaluating a loan amount, would be what HUD considered at that time moderately burdensome.
Right, you're correct. And, yeah, so we talked about that at the last meeting.
Mhm.
And in fact, it was the councilwoman from your district who had the most problem with how we did it in 2020.
Okay.
Laughed when we said that the cost of a home in the district was, I believe, $218,000,
I was going to say
right?
218 or
And
219.
she said, you can't buy a house for $218,000. I said, I know. But if we told you it was $500,000, where am I going to come up with any data source that tells me what the incomes of everybody in Clover School District is, or what the average is that you need to afford that $500,000 house? And so that's why we relied on the Census Bureau data, because it was apples to apples. And we were also laughed at because we said that the median household income was $69,000. We all know that people are making, or households are making more than $69,000, but that was the data available to us. And so that's been an issue throughout the state of South Carolina, not only for us, but other consultants as well. How do you conduct this affordable housing analysis, right? Without making up numbers, right? And so we have determined that the most accurate way to do this, or the thing that comes up in most meetings around the country for us, whether it's school impact fees or other impact fees that we calculate, is, well, what does this do to the cost of a house? How does this roll into the mortgage? What is this going to increase our cost burden? And we'll be in meetings where somebody from the home builders will say, for every $1,000 increase, you price so many people out of the market, right? And so we've decided that the best way to sort of illustrate what the impact of the impact fee is on a mortgage is to run it through, well, at this interest rate, this is what you could expect, this is what it adds to the house. Sometimes we'll put a down payment on it, sometimes we won't, it just depends. But it's a difficult proposition, as you can imagine.
Not easy. I think what's even more challenging is trying to figure out when you've got properties that aren't subject to the impact fee,
Right.
how do those get worked into the equation? Because that's generating zero revenue.
Right.
And that's very similar to someone coming into town buying an existing home, right? They're new, they may put a demand on the school, but they don't have to pay the impact fee because somebody before them did when they built that house.
We refer to that in the business as recycling. And we've worked and we've seen school districts that aren't growing at all in terms of housing units, but their enrollment is increasing because of the recycling of households. In most communities, it's a combination thereof.
Are there any additional questions? I'd like to say thank you because you guys did prepare extensively and were very, we appreciate it all the time.
We thank you.
So based on questions, is there a motion?
Could we request an executive session prior to the vote, or do we need to, prior to a motion, or does that have to be afterwards?
No, I'm fairly certain you can request one at any time. Yes.
So I would like to request a brief executive session to go over legal issues and get clarification on a couple of things regarding what's in front of us today.
Okay. And we don't need to vote on that? We do need to vote on that. Okay.
I'll second going into executive session then.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? We will be back. Okay, sorry for the delay. We are out of executive session and no action was taken. Looking at the new business, we are still on number 2, which is the Clover School District impact fee. Do we have a motion?
So I will make a motion to provide a recommendation to council to approve the ordinance adopting a public education facility impact fee for the Clover School District Number 2. I direct staff
In the
to,
amount of
in the amount of the
amount-
fees that were presented, is that
the
what we're?
requested.
The requested amount, yes. So let me try that again. So I'm, I'm making a motion that we recommend to council the ordinance adopting a public education facility impact fee in the Clover School District Number 2 in the amount of the fees that were requested. And that we are also would like to direct staff to provide the question and responses between us and the parties along to council, and also pass along some concerns we have about the amount that is being assessed on mobile homes for council to consider.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there discussion?
We had a discussion.
Okay. So if there's a first and a second on the table, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, moving on to new business number 3. I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution recommending an ordinance updating and revising the public education facilities impact fee to be imposed on all new residential developments in the Clover School District Number 2, be adopted by the York County Council.
And I'll second that.
Is there any discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, moving on to other business. Any questions on the rezoning tracking sheet, sorry?
Your favorite sheet.
My favorite one. If there's no questions, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to
I'll make a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn. Or you can, I'll second it.
Okay.
There you go.
We got a first and a second. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. Have a good night.